Welcome to the Unreasonable Life podcast. This is where we get to redefine what's possible and inspire you to create a life that is extraordinary. I'm Dr. Nona, an entrepreneur and author, quantum leap teacher, and founder of Elevate Club and 1 Week a Month Mastermind, a professional life liver, and your guide to living boldly. Every episode, I'll sit down with an incredible guest who has shattered limits, pursued their biggest dreams, and created lives that others have called impossible. Together, we're going to uncover the stories, the strategies, the lessons that will empower you to live your version of that unreasonable dream life. Because the life that you want isn't unreachable. It just happens to be unreasonable. Let's dive in. Hi, Chris.
Hey, Nona.
Thanks for coming on.
Dude, I'm so glad. I love the whole new name of everything. I think it's awesome. Unreasonable.
Yeah, unreasonable,
How
right?
cool is that?
So cool. And I think you've seen me make so many unreasonable
Yeah.
decisions and have this really unreasonable, crazy life. So
I would
it's,
say the last 2 years, since you start going to Italy and stuff, I don't
yeah,
know. I would like to know that too. Like, I'm totally jumping to this, but was the circumstances forcing, not forcing you, just like it was enough to be like, well, hey, I'm just going for it. And then that kind of like made you get unreasonable. You follow what I'm saying? It's like, because you started traveling more, you had to be in Rome or Italy this time. Like it was like you would say quantum
it was,
versus just like, well, I could just stay in Newport.
you know what it was? It all started with having an unreasonable, like, dream of like,
Hmm.
what if I lived? This was before Italy, my
Right.
fiance, any of that existed. It was like, what if I could live between Orange County and somewhere in Europe? What if I
Hmm.
could learn a new language? What if I could homeschool world school my kids? Because, travel is like a
Yeah.
big thing for me. So it started with that. And then the pieces that came together, one was my fiance, the other one was obviously like a whole bunch of other pieces that came together that made that a possibility. So it was kind of an integration of both of those concepts.
That's also because so many people would believe that, well, I'll just throw myself into the situation and I'll figure out when it was actually what you were asking for. You just didn't necessarily know the how.
How exactly?
I mean,
Yeah.
just think world school someone like that's a big deal. So that's great. And then it just started kicking in.
Then it just started kicking in. Yeah. I mean, I started with the vision, step
Hmm.
one, like what is the unreasonable thing that I want? And then and then I back up every decision, every action based on that. Even in the last couple of years, I was like, I'm gonna do a 1 week a month lifestyle. Like I'm just gonna work 1 week and I'm gonna see if I can squeeze everything in here, increase my profitability, scale my businesses, and then have the rest of the 3 weeks off. And that took the same exact steps. It started with like, what's the vision? How can I do this? And then, make every decision based on that. So, anyways, this is not about me. This is about you.
Yeah, but no, but it is good because you even look different.
I know.
And then people say that like it is a thing. When people say like wow, you even look different. And there's a lot that goes behind that saying. It's not that she looks different like she did her makeup differently. It's like there's a peace, there's an ease, and I think in a society today, so many people are living quietly behind such pressure
Mhm.
and such just a hamster wheel of stress that they don't even know what it's like to be unreasonable. In fact, unreasonable is like unreason. We actually, let me twist around. I think most of the world is living very unreasonable. You follow? And we just don't know what's it look like to get out of that. So for you to get out of that and change it, like that's why you look relaxed, at peace. Because a lot of people they want freedom, they want peace, and so when you actually get there and settle on that, that's a wonderful thing. Because yeah, you definitely look different in a good way.
And thank you. And I feel different. I feel
Yeah.
like a bunch of parts of myself
Hmm.
have died. And
Yeah.
I could not even last time you and I got together and had a chat on
Hmm.
Zoom.
I do not remember her. She was such an old version of myself. There was so much that has died in this process, and I think that's an important part of the piece too.
So what's the die-off process look like? Because what everybody needs to understand is if they're like, man, I would love to have this unreasonable life, but how do we? So there was parts of your life when there had to be a let go or a dying off, and that tends to be the thing that we hold on, myself included.
Totally.
And then this could be a segue, like not like a coaching segment, but there was things I know I should have done to have this unreasonable life that I want, and I chose not to.
Mm.
And it's like the universe, like I felt like squeeze, like a the toothpaste when there's nothing left and you ring it up, like literally the universe is squeezing me out, and it's very uncomfortable. So it's almost like I could have done it on my terms, or I did it in life terms, and life terms was extremely unreasonable and uncomfortable. So how do you know
Mhm.
when to let go of something that was you for so long? So it's
Mm.
almost like feels like an appendage, and like, okay, I can let this go. And then how did you deal with the uncomfortableness of that process, even though you know it was the right thing to do? There is this dysfunctional attachment we have to the familiar.
Totally.
You
Yeah,
follow?
totally. I think there's so many components. One is, if you have the vision, that's
Hmm.
unreasonable. It's unreasonable for your nervous system. So
Right.
if you don't tap into the vision enough times and you're not, I tell my students, I say, follow that frequency, right? Like sustain it. If I can sustain the vision, then my nervous system goes, oh, this is safe. I've lived
Mm.
in between Europe and California before. I've world schooled the kids. Like that's not overwhelming at all. Versus over here, I'm not comfortable with that, right? Or I wasn't at the time. So I'm going to self sabotage anytime any opportunity pops up that would get me close to this. I'm going to self sabotage myself back to here. So the vision is one part of it, but let's talk about the one aspect that's elimination, right?
Hmm.
So I have a mastermind called 1 Week a Month Masterminds. It's like these high level entrepreneurs that come in and they're already successful, but they want more time freedom, more energy freedom. And I have three non negotiables inside of the group. One of them is you have to eliminate one thing every week. Let go of an employee, let go of a part of a business, let go of a whole business, let go of a marriage, let's go of a person that's not what's a friend that's not working for you or whatever. Something that's not working that is not in alignment with where you're headed. So that is the process. I have this thing called quantum cleanse, where you
Hmm.
go through, you audit the things, the people, the way you think, the way that you are, and then you go, what doesn't fit into this unreasonable vision? And then every single day you ask yourself, what needs to go?
Right.
What part of me needs to go? What needs to die today? You know?
Because
So
I love that, because where I'm failing at coaching people, not failing, I'm just a little outdated. There's still a lot of work there. Well, there's still a lot of force behind it.
mm,
Like where you're letting go and we're forcing through. And it's a big
mm,
thing. And usually the force, like it's the ping pong. The game, you blow the ping pong up, and it just drops right back, or pushing the boulder up the hill. So there's a lot of people that are fighting for what they want, not
mm,
realizing where you're taking that beautiful approach of like just letting go of what's not serving you and making space for that. It's the old couch. You
mm,
know, uh, we have a couch in our living room. We want a new couch. And so we can't get a new couch unless we get rid of the old couch.
mm.
And then when we got rid of the old couch, we actually found out that we just didn't want a couch at all in that room. We just want to change it, like something even better and cooler that we never would have realized. I know that's a wacky metaphor, but it's just like
That's a great.
sometimes you don't realize when you let go of something, it might not even be like something brand new could happen that you'd even realize if that old idea or that old version of you was released. And so do you forgive it away? You know what I mean? Like, do you let it go? Like, what kind of if I want to say, like, is it a process of like loving it away? I used to say like you used to love it out of your life, or how do you? Because I know, because I'm just thinking of a couple people personally that's we're fighting with. They're They're holding on. Well, you would know this. This is a couple Nonas ago where they're still trying to hold on to that part-time practice and not let go. You remember those days, like,
Yeah.
because in the beginning you were like, well, here's how you can have a part-time practice in Rocket. Then you evolved to like, what you're doing, so it's like you could see them, like it seems it's so chaotic to
Yeah.
let go, or they're just when they try to let go, they're kind of what do you call it? How you reestablish or you reaffirm the story, this old story. See, I told you not to let go. See,
Mhm.
this happened. So all these things seem to happen that encourages them to see, like, I think I'm at a decision, a bad one. I need to go back. I need to go back. So
Mhm.
it's they train themselves, or they see life or tell them that same story that makes them go back and back over time, and they just go back to a place they didn't want to be, and it becomes this horrible depressive cycle where
Yeah.
you, and I know it wasn't easy, but I've seen you go a couple levels up,
Mhm.
but like really, really cool. And I know, like, during that time, I think people are afraid to do it. And I think that's where you excel in your coaching, is because you figured out a way to do it. And that's why I said, like, how do the letting go? What do you do with those emotions? I know you stay fixed on the wish fulfilled,
Yeah.
but how do you like, how do you help someone? And I know it's a big question is, but what are the tend to see the things that allow people to let go without them running back to it? Or like when I learned how to swim, I wanted to hold on to the side, and they kicked my feet.
Yeah.
This is back
It's
when I
like,
grew up. They would kick
okay.
your feet. Yeah, because I wanted safety. I wanted to go back to what I knew, but it
Yeah.
wasn't serving me.
Yeah.
So what do you do when they start to get scared and they feel them? They start to retreat back.
I think as a coach, and also just I would say this to anybody, is knowing that you're heading to self-sabotage as soon as you're about to have a quantum leap.
Nice.
So I call it a fear fence, right? You're in this fear field
Yeah.
as you get closer to the quantum leap.
Mhm.
And there's the fear fence. So on this other side of the fence, you have this unreasonable life, like your own next level is on the other side of the
Mhm.
fence. As you get closer, the fear pops up, the self-sabotage pops up. So like step one is knowing that you're gonna be facing the fear, that it's not
Mhm.
real, that it's just there because it's actually a sign for a quantum leap, right? And what I do when I do talk to somebody, I'll be like, even if they're excited, like, I'm going to let go of this business. I'm going to let go. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'll be like, you know what's going to happen? I pre-frame it like, this is what you're about to experience. You're excited now. Great. Like, let's clap for you. However, when you get closer, you're going to have doubt. When you get closer,
Mhm.
you're going to run the old story that you've been running this whole time. So sometimes that helps the individual be like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm feeling that. She said I was going to feel it. It's part of the
Yeah.
process. And I don't think it goes away. I mean, the thing that I try to remind myself is, I think people see me on Instagram and then they're like, yeah, she did great, blah, blah, blah. But I'm afraid a lot of
Mhm.
times. I bought my dream home. I was so afraid. I was in like panic mode, but I'm in my dream home now because I just made the jump. I let go of a business a few years ago that was bringing me like 500,000 in like a matter of a couple of months. Chris, I was like, it's just no longer aligned. I don't love it. I'm going to let it go. And I was so afraid because it was a good chunk of money. I was in survival, but it was a good chunk of money coming in. But once I let that go, then what ended up happening is I now had to get resourceful to come up with different ideas.
Mhm.
So the ideas that were more aligned and they took less time and they were more profitable came to me.
Mhm.
With that business being in my energetic field, would have never happened.
Mm. So right.
And then trusting that you're going to land, you're going to fail. If you fail, you can get up and you can
Mhm.
fail forward too. So, what I want to know about you is what's been the most unreasonable decision or action? What's something that you're like, you did that's so outside the norm for you or for people around you, even?
I will say. when I was thinking of coming in this because like when Dr. Nona like reached out to me, we don't plan because it just we wanted to come through us, right? So I
Yeah.
was going to say something about the practice. I
Yeah.
was going to say, and I did this, and then we grew to almost 3,000 visits a week, and you know, but I will tell you, I think the most unreasonable thing I did was choosing to get a divorce
Mm.
because I had everything. And I had millions of dollars in the bank I could share with this person who would let me spend all I wanted to spend. So it's like it was so cool. I had two houses in Park City and the cars and the boys. And I remember a friend of mine, Dr. Mick, he got into that conscious language stuff. He's like, listen, and this is no disrespect to my ex. She's great. We're
Yeah.
just, I mean, we're both doing great. Like she would probably say the same thing
Yeah.
because her life's phenomenal. He's like, is this person your highest choice? And I remember saying no. He's like, wow, you're telling the truth. And he
Mhm.
goes, well, now it's going to take a lot of courage. And the courage and the process was literally, I look back, it was an entirely different life.
Mm.
Like everything was deconstructed and there was hurt and there was pain, but there was understanding. And then, there's, stuff with the kids. And even now, like one justice hasn't talked to me like in a year and a half. And he's making, so all this, you look back going, well, I definitely made the right decision for everybody. However, that guilt and shame comes in saying, well, if I would have still done there, maybe justice would have been better, or this would have been better, or I wouldn't have been in this hardship like this. But it was the freedom, the autonomy, the opportunities that happen from that were spectacular. It's probably 5 or 6 years. I mean, today I was telling Monique today, it's like my last 3 years, probably been the roughest 3 years of my life, ego wise, like letting go, like, oh, like,
Mhm.
however, having her, but at the same time, there's things in my life now that are far by the greatest blessing that I never would have had in that other life,
Mm.
period. Like I never would have had a love like Monique, period. We have a little girl on the way in June. I mean, out of the office finally, like just like wacky, like I'm living like I'm living a totally different movie. Like I got another life,
Mhm.
and there was so much beautiful things that happened, but it was different. So looking back, is that was unreasonable because it just would have been so easy to
Yeah.
stay roommates, so easy to not have to stress as much, not have to create as much, not have to learn as much and evolve as much. It would have been smooth, but there
Mhm.
would have been a level of like, I wonder if, or there would have been an emptiness that I never would have found. So what I was looking for, Dr. Nona, like I found what I was looking for, what I felt I missed.
Mhm.
And now like I'm in the point where I'm like, well, I want to rebuild back some of the nice nice, comfortable things that I had back then too, right? So it's like, but I found the thing
Mhm.
or the foundation or like an unconditional love and like a little baby girl, like all these things. And there was a big humbling that I went like to my spirit, more humble and more kind and
Mhm.
patient and silent. That that was a very unreasonable thing for me to do.
Totally.
Or anybody. It's like, because anybody would have. There's a lot of people that, like, hey, we're staying together because of the kids, or we're staying together because things are good. Like, I mean, it's not bad. We're just roommates. But looking back, the unreasonable things I did to hit a huge clinic, I don't know if someone would want that because became a very one dimensional man in that. And I
Mhm.
justified my working my ass off. I justified the practice. So when I came home, I could justify, well, see the houses you guys got? I built that. See the toys you have? I built it. So I used that to justify why
Mhm.
it would work. And I used to use that as a justification why I didn't have to be present for them, thinking
Mhm.
that, hey, everything you have is because of me. Spiritually, I went off. So I was a one-dimensional person, right? So it was business and body, maybe.
Yeah.
And after a while, my body started to break down. But I realized like, wow, I wasn't what I call a four-dimensional man, body, being, balance, and business. So because I just justified it. So what seems to be cool, it was just on the making money side. And like you said, you can make money at anything, right? So it wasn't that. So what I thought was my unreasonable thing in growing this practice wasn't that.
Yeah.
It wasn't starting a practice. It wasn't telling my story about ulcerative colitis. Like that's what anybody would do. Like if you have if you have a story of overcoming, of course you share it. So, but the unreasonable thing is, what did I do that seemed ridiculous? Because in my heart, I always wondered what would a certain relationship. I had two patients that were married for 52 years, and I probably talked to you about it. And they had you could palpate their chemistry. I was like,
Mhm.
man, I don't think I'll never have that because I felt this is just the way life's going to be,
Mm.
and not realizing I got that. I got that.
Yeah.
And so that was that to me was probably like the most unreasonable thing I did. And it's very taboo. Like, what do you mean you left your wife? Like, you tell me to leave my
Well,
wife?
I,
Listen, I'm telling you, just audit your life and ask if you're happy. And like I had a brother who stayed together for the kids. That didn't work out good at all.
yeah. I also
No,
think like to stay, well, I have a similar story and I have
yeah,
some questions about what you went through, but I think to stay when you know it's not the right thing or you know that there is something it's just something is not right, right? To
mhm,
stay is also unfair. It's extremely
yeah,
unfair to the other person. And I have this belief system that if you do the right thing that is for you, it will always work out for the best of everybody
yeah,
else too. But going back to that, I wonder when you were making that decision, and I'm asking because I personally went through this too.
yeah, yeah.
Um, did you have people in your life that were like, Chris, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you
Oh,
have the marriage, you have the houses, you have the thing. Everything on paper is like this. Like, why don't you just make it work? Why don't you?
yeah,
Like, people disagreed with your quote unquote unreasonable decision.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, everybody did. I just remember listening to Abraham Hicks, by myself saying, what feels good. I'm like, this is the right decision because I resisted it
Yeah.
for a long time. It's probably 7 years.
So
And
7 years. Yeah, I feel that.
because
Did you have?
Titus was born, we went to a thing called Lifebook. Now,
Yeah.
Lifebook, you heard of that, like what the owners of Precious Moments, the John, whatever. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a 5-day thing.
Yeah.
And it was like you were writing your life script in 12 different areas. I mean, and when you were done, you sent to them, they literally made you a beautiful book that you like put in your will. Like this is the values you stand for. So it's called Life Book. And when I was writing, when we were doing that, because it was all future stuff,
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. I was so frustrated and so torn because I'm like, I can't do this thing
Mm,
because I'm just like, I don't see this future. It's like it just kind of amplified
mm,
this has to end. And because Titus was breastfeeding,
yeah.
I was like, oh, I can't leave. I don't want to be the asshole who leaves with a newborn.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah. And when Titus was 6.5, 7 was what was the time.
Yeah.
And of course, yeah, my mom, as a mom, she's like, you can't do that for the kids, no
Yeah.
parents. But yeah, yeah, yeah. And it didn't make sense financially,
No, it makes no sense.
everything. No.
That's the thing. But I feel like if you're gonna have a parallel jump to a
Hmm.
whole nother new life, you're gonna have to do things that because like if you had gone, your future would have been predictable. So would have
Hmm.
been my future. It would have been totally predictable.
Yeah.
But because I chose and because you chose to jump to a whole nother parallel life, then your future now has so many opportunities and so many
Right.
potentialities, right? And I'll just share this because it's relevant to this conversation. When I told my dad that I'd made the decision, I told my ex-husband, had the conversation, started the process, and then I told my dad, I said, this is what we're doing. I'm getting divorced. It was fairly amicable. And my dad was like so disappointed. What about the kids? Are you sure?
Mhm.
Like making the wrong decision. And mind you, I know my dad loves me. Like I know my dad loves me. And I know he's coming from a place of love, but also, and he was also coming from place of fear and a lot of the cultural whatever, like don't get divorced, can be bad for the kids, this and that and the other. And I didn't talk to him for a few days. And then a few days later, I called him and I said, that wasn't nice. This was my decision. And you don't even know what I'm going through. What if he was beating me up? He wasn't. But what if he was beating me up? You want me to stay in this marriage? Like, you didn't even ask. You were just immediately into disappointment. Now, story has a good ending because my parents had been married for 40 some years at this time that I was having this conversation with my mom. So I hashed it out with my dad, and he understood, and he was like, I fully support you. He apologized, everything else. My parents had been in a toxic relationship for most of their marriage. And my parents had stayed together this long. About a few years after I got divorced, my dad decided to divorce my mom.
Really?
So here's the thing. Up until that point, both my sister and I have had conversations separately with both of them. Like, you guys just please, like, separate. Like, this is toxic. It doesn't work out. We're even out of the house and we still would feel it.
Were your parents deranged at all? Was that
No,
arranged?
they fell in love in college.
Yeah.
Like, no, not at all. So, especially in the last like decade, I think, I don't know, menopause, I don't know what was going on, but their relationship was just really bad. And and we would push to my sister and I would be like, come on, please, like, do you see this? Do you see this is happening? This is toxic, blah, blah, blah. And they just would never move in that direction. Now, when I stopped pushing and I just stepped into my truth, which was in that point of time, it was divorce, then, my dad had the whole disappointment situation. And then after that, a couple of years later, I became the inspiration to choose to leave his marriage, right? And my mom's actually really mad at me, but I didn't actually do anything. I just became the place of inspiration because I lived my truth. Now, was it sad? Did I experience sadness that this is what they've gone through? Yes. Sad for my mom, sad for my dad, for my sister. There's a lot of dynamics and layers that are involved, but I had to live my truth. I had to let my life be my message, and I didn't do it for anybody else. I did it for myself. Right. That's a full circle. My dad now lives, when I had the dream to buy a house and live in this house, it was like, I also want to have an in-law unit so my dad can live with me. My dad now lives in Laguna Beach and has a ocean view space, but that wasn't possible until I stepped into my truth.
Yeah, talking to you, like, even, and this is a compliment, like going into this, I'm like, shit, she's going to tell me something and I know I'm going to have to do what I know I got to do. You know what I mean? It's like, fuck. But because it is a little scary, but like, I appreciate you sharing that and me sharing, because I think a lot of people like to protect status. Well, you're married, you got everything, but like, again, they're in lives of quiet desperation. It's like, if they really could express themselves and do what they were guided to do, but they're like, shit. I even felt, I'm like, well, I made a decision. I used to say, like, well, maybe in the next life, I'll be able to experience that type of life. So I had success in so many areas, but I never had that. So maybe in my next life, and like, didn't realize, like, I did have a next life, very next life. Like, you're so right. It's like, there's certain shit I don't remember. Like, Monique's like, so what was it like when so-and-so was pregnant, or when you had Justice, or when you had Tyson? I'm like, I don't remember. I just think I was working, but I don't remember I don't remember. I know there's a part of my memory that stayed over there. Like you said, like, I don't even remember that person. Like, that is a true thing. And I think because there's such a vibrational shift, it is another version of you, that's just like, you love her, you accept her, you appreciate her, but she's just that's just, you don't have resonance with her anymore.
Yeah. And look, so much of you has had to die to get to here. That's why you don't remember parts of it.
100,000,000%. So, see, what we're talking about here is a lot of people want to label this thing we're talking about, not the divorce thing, but the feeling, as wrong. So we get back into right and wrong and guilt and shame. And that's what holds people back. That's what holds people back. It's not just the fear, it's the guilt and shame. But what if I don't? Well, that's the fear part of the guilt and shame. Because a lot of things I could say, well, didn't you feel guilty, Nona? Didn't you feel shameful? You made your parents feel like. So when we could just not look at guilt and shame and be like, that does not have any precedence over my life. That's a big one.
Yeah, and I think most people who are stuck, they're actually just using each other to
Yeah.
like, I'm not leaving because of the kids. I'm not leaving because of this. I'm not leaving. I'm not doing, or I'm not jumping into a business because of X, Y. And you're just using this story to stay stuck because that's what's comfortable. You're just using it to validate your own limitations.
Yeah.
And that's why it's really powerful to have somebody like you as a coach, because then you call them out on it.
Yeah, and then you're calling it, but it's a safe place. It's like, listen,
It's-
someone with you, they could tell you the truth, and they're not going to be like, wow, she's going to throw a Bible at me or something like that, and she's not going to like give me all this judgment, guilt, and shame. That's why people say, like, how many times, like, how you doing? I'm doing great. You're full of shit. A lot of people are full of shit. Like the majority are full of shit,
Yeah.
but they don't have a place to do that, or they feel like I'm wrong if I say this. Especially with social media and this damn phone. I took 3 weeks off of social media. It's awesome.
Wow, man.
So good. Like, what the fuck? Like, and I just went there to post stuff. Like, you and I do stuff for business on there, but like, that was one thing when I practiced. I never had it, never did the social media thing because it was just, I just want to run my own race. And we don't realize that even if it was 5 times a day, you found yourself comparing yourself to somebody or something times a year. That's a lot of times. So just like, you don't realize that one extra time you compare, or like you're ungrateful. Because if I'm comparing, I'm clearly ungrateful. That wears on you. That wears on you a lot. And then it blocks the ability for you to say, hey, listen, I choose to move. Here's my vision. I'm going to let go of these things. Like let go. And I wonder how many people would let go of social media if they didn't have to. I felt like it was dancing around like a clown, Nona. It's like, who gives a shit that I wake up at 4 a.m? But that's what I was told to do. I'm like, I remember it's like 20 minutes to post a picture that I was up at 4 a.m. I'm like, really, like, if this is what I have to do, like, if this is the new way of doing business, like, I don't want it.
Yeah.
Like, are you really going to coach with me because I woke up? Like, if anything, I just made you feel like shit because you didn't wake up at 4. So, I'm still trying to get out of that never miss. Like, it's just a weird situation.
Yeah.
And just become more private with Monique. But the thing is, why did I do it, or why with the patients? Because I felt like it was dancing around like a clown because you're trying to, keep some opportunities or channels or income open when you're trying to make this leap.
Yeah.
Or you don't want to dig into your savings. You're like, shit, I got to dig in my savings. But like, to me, it's like I'm betting on myself because if I go back to that, I'm just going to be in the same situation. So yeah, I definitely want to talk to you about that. I'm like, so in that process, everybody, because I want everybody who's watching this, like this, if you saw Dr. Nona for the past years, this wasn't like, it's not a smooth, beautiful carpet ride. It could be, but there are points, like I said, there's a dying off, a letting go.
Yeah. And
That has to be done with anything you do that. You can't hold on to all that. Like, it would be so easy. Like, I have a part-time practice, so I could, right? I'll hold on to part-time practice and I could do all these other things, and you could, but there's something energetically, you're right, that just, it gets in the way of you actually like fully opening up. In fact, like holding on and you try to move forward, you'll what's it? What do you tell that story again? Like I continue to justify the stupid stories I have. I knew I shouldn't move forward. See this, but it wasn't that I'm just holding on to stuff or have energy things holding me back to actually go for it.
Yeah.
The other day, because I got weird thing with my office. I just went in, the doors were locked. I was out. So it was one of those, long story. And I needed that to happen to then move forward to what I need to do. You follow? Like, I needed to be out.
I know. Well,
Like, it sucked, but it's like, okay, well, great. Let's do this now. Let's do everything virtually now.
like if you're not going to do it actively on your own and with intention, then the universe is like, here you go. You're locked out now.
Yeah.
Go do the thing.
Yeah. So it's like, so let's go virtually now. Like, so my thing is funny, like when you're saying, what's that vision? It's like, so I want to be home now and do things virtually and work less
Yeah.
so I could be here for Rayma. So that's her name, Rayma. Because like with the boys, I was working all the time and, I wasn't present because I was busy working. But here it'd be nice to like be in the studio, go down and hang out with the baby and watch her and just, just have I really got blessed with a totally like, I don't, it's not a second chance, just like the opportunity to do it the way I wish I would have done it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't have this opportunity because they feel, well, this is the person I'm married to, or this is the job I got. Like they feel like I am contracted into this thing. And I guess I just got to deal with it, not knowing that they have time to experience
Yeah.
whatever it is they wanted to.
And that those boundaries are made up anyways. Those
1,000,000%.
boundaries are made up. Like, and man, like same with you, like the love I feel, the connection I feel. I just knew it existed when I was in my marriage. I just knew there had to be something. There had to be, it existed in me. I just couldn't feel it in that interaction, in that dynamic. So I knew it had to exist. And I was willing to live alone for the rest of my life, and not finding that thing versus being in a marriage that, where I felt like, I don't know how to explain it. Like,
No, I know exactly. I said, listen, I'm cool by myself to be like George Clooney. Well, back then, guys,
dialogue.
George Clooney was he's just a guy who dated just beautiful women. And, he got married in his mid 60s. Now he's getting divorced again. But regardless, like, I'm like, yeah, I'm good. This is good. I tried it, did it. And then you get to the point where you hit detachment,
Mm-hmm.
And what I want to ask you, here's a good one. How do you stay childlike? Because there's a very much of a childlike essence of imagination creation. Because at 48, I remember when I started practice, the reason why we grew, because there was a childlikeness about me that didn't know you couldn't do it. So it was like kind of a sandbar. Like I created so many stories in 48 years of bullshit but I didn't have it when I started because I didn't know you couldn't, right? So how do you remain as we get older to remain? There's clearly a childlike imagination creation to be able to do this.
You may not like my answer, but or it may not work for everybody listening in. But what I do is I see being childlike as, like the creative part, right? Like the delusion part of things. And this may come across wrong, but I'll say it anyways. And here's the thing. I think the right brain and the left brain, right? The feminine versus the masculine. So the masculine says, this is the logic and this is how things work. And then the feminine says, oh no, well, I can dream out here and I can do the thing and it's fine. And the feminine might be a little bit more delusional, a little bit more chaotic, definitely more creative, more nurturing, more connection based. And the masculine is structure, strategy, the push, the putting things into action.
Yeah.
They're both required, right? So for me personally, in order for me to tap into that, because believe it or not, I used to be maybe some people are listening to this, they're like, yeah, we believe you. You were definitely in your masculine, but I was so much in my masculine. So I've had to learn how to be in the right brain or utilize my right brain. And so for me personally, I can say, put on the music, put on something nice, dance around the house, like get in the creative mode, create the environment that helps me tap into the delusion, the dreaming of a child. My 5-year-old, what do you want to do when you grow up? I want to be Superman. He truly believes he's going to be Superman when he grows up, right? So how can I tap into that? For me, it's creating the environment that allows me to do it and then not sharing it with other people. Because how often do you hear people say, what are you talking? That doesn't work. Yeah. That's not how the world
works. You nailed it on the head because like, just for instance, like, and anybody watching, maybe you could they experience this. So, I'll go work out and I'll listen to something on YouTube. So it could be, one of those business YouTubes, right? And you ever listen to something and it convicts you that you're not doing enough?
Mm,
So it's, how's the feeling? It's, I feel it here.
mm,
Like, fuck. Like, so it's like I'm convicted and it puts me into the, okay, go home and work some more. It's like being busy, but not so you feel the conviction thing versus you're right. It's like, you know what? Can I just listen to some music I want and work out? And then I feel it. I don't feel it even in my body. I feel it here, you
yeah.
know? And then I don't know if you ever listen to music and you get a tear of inspiration,
Oh,
right? Or like you're just elated.
yeah.
And so there's a difference. Like when I listen to these things, because I feel I have to on business, and like, man, I'm not doing enough. I need to do this. And like, so I get ideas from conviction, which are hard, heavy, like convicted ideas. But then you have like elated ideas or like
Yes.
tear of inspiration ideas from music. Like, you're right, music. It's like, but there's that part of me that um, feels that I need to be more convicted than elated. But in the elation or listening to, for me, it's music too. I get great ideas. I could vision more. Like I remember, like that's how I came up with Rama. It's just like I pictured Monique and I and the boys. We had a great relationship, and there's this little girl, and she had a little necklace that said Rama, and it just like so. But I mean, and you just weep. Like I found myself weeping in the gym, like so good, but so
Love that.
good. You know what I mean? Like fuck.
But
Versus listen,
that's the muscle.
a
That's a
hundred
muscle
percent.
practice. What you're used to is
Mhm.
I'm not doing enough, so let this drive me to success, and it has served you so well, but
Right.
not anymore.
Nona, it's like, and I feel it's there's something broke. I'm like, well, wait a second. It's like I used to do A, B, and C, but it's like, wow, this is really not working. This is just this same because it's the equation I know.
Mm,
It's like you're right. It's not working anymore. It's not. I'm honestly. It's just. It's not. It's not where I need to be right now, because it's the fruit of it is not showing. And it's
yeah.
funny. So a couple things happened. Like I injured myself, or this happened, or that happened, or wasn't in the office, and I'm like, I don't know where this income's going to come from. And sure enough, like things come, not expecting it. And like that's where that trust comes in. And it just, I have so many examples of trust. Like I see what happened, like, but it's so easy to just go back to the hustle and grind. Where I mean, it's like here, how many more examples do you want of just trusting the process?
Mhm.
And yeah, so that's just been the battle I've been through. I don't, those two things
Yeah.
to where because it's so easy to just watch that YouTube thing, get convicted, be like, see, I'm not doing that shit. And then I think that's the reason why that equation of hard work wasn't working is if I just added a call center, if I just added
Yeah.
a better equipment, a better lighting,
More things like
it's that masculine brain, like the checklist or the versus like, I just want to, and she's the best. She's like a little girl, man. She's just like, I mean, just happy than a pig in shit at all times, regardless. And so
yeah.
much fun and so trusting and just journals what she wants and just such like and it's like I get frustrated at her sometimes because it's exactly what I want to be like it sometimes,
Mm,
so so she's just I mean she's been absolutely the greatest thing in my life. And just going back to the if I didn't take that unreasonable action,
yeah.
I, t- I would have still been the guy wondering, man, and I would probably fill it with a lot of like false things,
Sure.
false relationships, right? Material, like things that just wasn't fitting that void where,
Yeah.
that whole decision, very unreasonable to anybody. Like no one would have taken that road. And I doubt many people would have taken the road you went on because it was for you. This was for me.
Yeah.
This person has it for them, but it definitely, if you look at life as a series of experiences, that one thing that I always wish and wondered, man, I wonder what that would be like to be
Yeah.
able to have. It's been quite beautiful, right? So it was a full package for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And now I know for me, and I think you too, I can die happy. I've felt the depth of the connection and the depth of unconditional love, and it's a
Hmm.
beautiful thing. So it's funny because we started this conversation. I was like, we're gonna talk business, and we're gonna,
Yeah, and I thought I was too.
yeah,
And I think if anything, people wanted to hear my unreasonable business things,
yeah,
but you have to realize like my biggest unreasonable thing was something that, hit something deeper in life that I think was just more serving to me than anything else. Like I'm so pumped.
yeah.
Never did I think I'd have a little baby at 40. Like I used to be, I was told because my dad had me at 47, and that's why I wanted kids younger because everybody thought my dad was my grandfather.
Oh
I was
yeah,
like, man, then he died when I was 68. Oh no, when he was 68, so I was 21. So I
yeah,
had this fear that I didn't want to be a dad, that I want to be there for the kids. So Justice I had 30 and Titus at 36, and never would I think at 48 I'd have a little girl. And
so excited for you
so it's
guys.
so cool. It's very cool. So, like just like when my dad had me, I was the youngest. I had a softer dad, a more wise dad, more loving dad. He was more with me. So it's just like, things. It's amazing how much shit we have going on in our brains, in our heart, and triggers that, you know, if they're not audited correctly, we tend to see we don't see them as the gifts they really are.
Yeah,
I'm very different than my dad at 48, tremendously different. So it's just like, but I think for me, my biggest thing is, and I rightfully so, I put pressure because when you do find that person, now I want to give her and the family everything. So now I put this pressure on myself to be like, fuck, I want to give them everything in the world, but what she wants is just me. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like I want to give all this cool shit, and she's the whole time. I don't want to miss out on this. Here I'm working my ass off to give her the stuff I think she wants and the family wants, and here all they wanted was me being present.
yeah. Your presence.
Done. Like doesn't matter what we babe. Doesn't matter. She's like, I saw you sitting in shit in jail, and like I could, like she doesn't matter to us. She's game. So it's tough for me to accept that and lean into it. So that's just stuff I'm working on.
Yeah, your journey to unconditional love from
Yeah,
you.
yeah. So maybe that's my thing. Maybe it's and it gets down to what solves a lot of things. The ability to love yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
I
it
mean,
took love for you to leave that relationship. It took loving myself to leave that
yeah,
relationship because everybody, like, I was the bad guy
of
from
course.
her side of it. So, but at the end of the day, it was like I said, as unreasonable as it was like I would do it all over again
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
sure.
Yeah.
Wow. And I think the story's not only like you give me a couple more years of the story, then it's like, well, if I didn't do this, I never would have experienced this. So
Oh, yes.
I'm still baking. You're a little bit ahead of me in a little, but I'm still baking to be able to tell you this story of like, if I didn't make this decision here, I never would have been here. So
Oh,
here is like I got a year or two before we see what that is.
yeah.
But because I was just more stubborn than you were. I just held on to shit that should have been gone 7 to 10 years ago. I should, and I realized like, wow, I just held on to it. I was stubborn. We had plenty of talks. You say, what you told me all the time. You know what you need to do. Years and years. But there's a point where that person, you only can tell them so much.
Yeah, but also that's okay. That's
Yeah,
part of the journey, right? That's
yeah,
part of the journey. It's you have to not know and not do so that you can figure out the contrast of what you do want. You have to
yeah.
get
Lots of contracts.
that contrast is massive.
Yeah.
So
So these are always good conversations because, like,
yeah,
one thing I could count on you is you're always, transparent, and you allow me a space to be able to talk about things that I normally wouldn't share, wouldn't talk about because I just know it's a safe space.
yeah.
It's something that I think it's very important. I appreciate your friendship
Thank you.
over the years, and just absolutely proud of you of what you've done and accomplished and gone through, and it's very inspiring. I mean, you're living life.
Yeah.
You're just not practicing. You're living life, and I think that's a beautiful thing.
Thank you. Well, it's
Yeah,
full circle because I was a little tiny little chiropractor, came to your office and
yeah,
you showed me what it looked like to see 200 in a couple hours. And I went back and I hit 200 in a week. And then here we are a
yeah,
decade or so later. So
yeah.
I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate who you are. And you're definitely an expander. Have always been for me. So I love these conversations.
Very good.
And to wrap up, where should we send people to check you out, or the things you've got so many cool things going on, and I know you're on Instagram when you are on
Well,
social
well,
media.
I think it's still Instagram because
Yeah,
I think what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna film more long form stuff because I'm more of a teacher.
yeah,
I'm more of a teacher, coach, and speaker. So it's like me trying to figure out 90 seconds just isn't serving anybody. So if you're willing to listen to me talk about something for 10 to 15, even 20 minutes to actually get a full thought, to actually like get, then so I'll probably go more on YouTube and then just throw stuff on Instagram to go to YouTube. So still at Instagram at Dr. Zaino. And that's it. You know, I answer all my own stuff.
yeah. So go follow Chris Zaino on Instagram. I follow him. I see this stuff when you are on Instagram.
Yeah.
I see your stuff around.
Yeah, yeah. I just was like, you know, I went through a thing, Dr. Nona. I was like, you know, what works, you know, what's working, what isn't, what needs to be adjusted, and what new things, and what wasn't working. I'm like,
Social
you
media.
know, like this posting stories, like who gives a shit what I eat? Who gives a shit? Like, hey, if you want to know what I eat and want to get a physique, like, yeah, well, that's where you could coach with me on. But like, if
Exactly.
I mean, if yeah, I write a note to Monique, you know, like, because one of those things was I always write a love note to Monique every single morning.
Yeah, I
And
was
I don't always feel like doing it, and she doesn't know feel, but it just shows you like that is a discipline that every day she will
yeah,
know that she's loved, admired, and honored and appreciated. But then after a while, it's like I ain't writing this note because of Instagram. You
right.
know, there's that little bit of pull, like I'm not writing this note to do content. You know, I
Yeah.
want this because I want it for her. So I just felt like, you know, people can mind their own damn business sometimes.
I
So it's
know.
like I was like, yeah, I'm not using this platform. Like, if you want to hear some good shit when I have it, and this long form, great. But like, I'm not gonna like, you know, if you're really that interested in my life and when I wake up and this little, you know, then like find something else to do because I want to be something that's someone of value. So, but still, Instagram is the easiest to
Yeah.
get me on.
Well, I'll say this one thing. I know we always go over, but
Yeah.
we'll try to wrap it up on time. But I will say I know exactly what you mean with Instagram or social media in general. We have to do it for our business, I
Yeah.
think, to some degree. The thing that completely shifted my perspective was something I heard from Gary B, where he says, do not try to create content, just
Mhm.
document your life. So if I'm inspired, and this is very frustrating for my team because my team's like, can we come in and do the video? Can we do the-" No, no, no. I have to be in the mood. I might be in the car. I might be with the kids. You know, it's gotta be in the moment, and I gotta be excited to share something to do that. So I think that's
Yeah.
what took me away from like, oh my gosh, I gotta do 3 times a week and I gotta do X, Y,
Mhm.
and Z. Anyways,
Yeah, and one thing I'm very pumped and I appreciate is all your Cappadocia pictures. I think that was great.
you were the inspiration for that. I was like, I want to
We
go
went we went back there and eloped. I
there.
mean, like, couldn't have been a better place.
I
It's
know.
magical. Like that's what I'm talking about. That's real like imagination. You know, go
Yeah,
there for a week. So
that's a
good.
little delusion right there.
Well, I
Exactly.
appreciate you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chris. Thanks everybody for watching and listening to this. Make sure you subscribe, leave us some comments, and we'll see you guys soon.
Thank you for tuning into the Unreasonable Life podcast. I hope that today's episode has inspired you to dream bigger, act bolder, and step into your own version of an unreasonable dream life. If you loved what you heard today, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who's ready to take their next bold leap. And I'd love to hear your thoughts and connect with you. You can follow me on Instagram and share your biggest takeaways from today's episode. And remember, the life that you want isn't unreachable. It's just unreasonable. Until next time, keep challenging the status quo, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Unreasonable Life podcast.